Johnson, and this is focused on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, mountain back to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Country, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talk about home affairs, hey, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information, history, talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jar.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another edition of Tough Talking Thursday on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jar, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. As you can see, we have a full house here, and we are talking tough on very crucial issues happening in our country. First off, some of our colleagues were in Liberia after some time. They are back from Monrovia and other parts of Liberia, and they will be sharing their perspectives. Also, we're going to do a pulse check on the key deliverables or the key promises of the Boakai Kun administration. Things like training 10,000 youths in digital learning or computer literacy. We're going to talk about that. The asset recovery, the war crimes court, what's up with the yellow machines? We're going to be talking all that and do a pulse check. And there are legislative projects and legislative retreats. What are these retreats all about? What is their cost? And why are there so much confusion concerning these retreats? Joining me to discuss all this, we have the journalist, the diplomat, and someone who worked with 3 presidents, Dr. Abdullah Dukle. Welcome, Doc.
Thank you, Dennis. Happy to be here.
Thank you. And Dr. Dukle is back from Liberia after some time. He didn't go to Liberia when the President Weah was there. I don't know why, but he will explain. He's back, and he's going to be sharing his perspectives going to Liberia and back. Also, let me welcome our governance advisor, Mr. Ahmed Salif. He too is back from Liberia fresh. I mean, you can see how he looks, all organic. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm happy to be here. Let's do it.
Thank you. Let me welcome Mr. Thomas B. Cannon. He's our public financial management guru here. And Thomas worked with the Governance Commission, so he knows a little bit. Come on, don't do your hair like that. Thomas didn't work, but anyway, let me welcome Mr. Thomas B. Cannon to the show. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Dennis. I used to work on governance issues, but not with the governance commission.
Oh, okay, right. I knew there was something had to do with governance. Also, let me welcome Mr. Anthony Sie. He's the host of the Hour of Politics. He's fresh from Liberia. After some time, he went back to Liberia. He's been back like 2 days now. Welcome, Mr. Sie.
Dennis, it's good to be here. And I missed Tough Talking Thursday. Yeah, let's talk. I'm here to talk.
Yeah, it's time to talk tough. Let me welcome all our viewers from across the globe. If you have not done so already, please share the show, invite someone, and let's talk. We will be joined later on by our colleague from River G, Waplo Institute, Mr. Mohammed Sharif. But for now, let's do it. And welcome, gentlemen. It's good to have all of you. Let me start with Dr. Duke on his perspective, returning from Liberia. I read some of your random thoughts, so I know a thing or two of your perspective, but we want you to give more. Dr. Dukley.
Thank you, Dennis. It was exciting to go to Liberia, to go home after 5 years, and seeing the city still being the city. But I mean, it's so difficult for me to talk about it because if you look at it from political point as perspective, I have one view. If I look at it from the economic aspect of it, you see another thing. But all in all, my impression was really, in my life, I returned home probably 3 times since the war. The first time was 91. Dr. Sawyer called me from Abidjan. I left. I was working with Alpha Blondy and, Fogbanya. I left and I came to Monrovia. And I joined the government. And at the time, people say, okay, yeah, there was something coming out. It was like a rebirth coming out of the war. And then 2003, I went where Judy Bryant came in, Taylor left. There was that enthusiasm again, etc., etc. 2005, of course, we won the elections. But this time it was like the country is beaten down. People are beaten down. You feel the despair, people don't. You walk around Monrovia, you go downtown. I mean, Carey Street, Rwanda Street, and all of that. Thousands of people just walking around like zombies with nothing. People trying to sell old jeans from China. You go to red light. People sitting in the dirt, with kids, you don't know what is what. So somebody told me, the population of fly has multiplied by 5 under Koji in the city of Monrovia. But what I'm saying is that there's a sense of despair. Things don't, the country has fallen really down. Politically, at the level of the politics, there's a criminalization of the states. The state apparatus has been criminalized in a way that we have never seen it before. That people are able to use the government and the legal means of the government to steal. And now you can't catch them because they're so good at it. So, that is there, so pervasive. People talk about it. Everybody talk about, job, and money. So the grand idea of transforming Liberia is way, way, way ahead of us.
Thank you. Was there any aha moment?
Aha.
Yeah.
That's every day. Every day there's an aha moment. Every day you say, no, that can't be. But yeah, it is. You hear things say, no, that can't be true. But it is true. And it's not good. The criminalization of the states, we have to dismantle that. If not, I don't think Boca will go anywhere with nothing.
And just for a little more clarity, what does that mean, the criminalization of the state?
People have found a way to infiltrate the state mechanism through business contact. Like somebody will say, okay, somebody say, oh, I'm the Minister of State. I live 5 blocks from the main road, so I cannot drive on the dirt. So they got to pave my road. but he signed a contract for that road. He doesn't sign it directly, but he gets the Minister of Public Works to sign it to a contract to a Lebanese or somebody else who has the money, who's going to pre-finance it at $2 million a mile when it's supposed to be $500,000 in a mile. So, but it's legal because you go through a system. PPCC agreed with it. So you have people who have managed that. And you have ministers who have shares in companies that are doing business in Liberia. People building people who are building the road, companies that are building the road are owned by ministers. You know the story. The Minister of Information, the Minister of Education in the last government had a school system that was competing with the government schools. The Minister of Health had a hospital that was competing with the government hospitals. So the criminalization of the state is real, and I don't know what I can dismantle it.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Salif, who also came. By the way, let me welcome our colleague, FOL political analyst, Mr. Mohammed Sharif. He's a product of Waplo Institute, all the way from Kilipo Kanweken in River G. Welcome, Mr. Sharif.
Thank you, Dennis. It's good to be here.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Salif, who has also returned from Liberia. And while we are here and when we are talking, they say, oh, man, you are not in Liberia. Come and you see. So, Mr. Salif, I want you to share your perspective, but please start with whether your perspective has changed being in Liberia and back, or like, oh, I didn't know this. I was on FOL talking about going to Liberia and back. Has it changed your perspective and the way you deal with Liberian issues?
Yeah, not a whole lot. I mean, things that I discuss here on FOL are things that I try to really have them vetted. I have very strong contacts in Liberia, in all fabrics of society, from government to the waterside market, if you will, to various institutions. So whatever I discuss, I try to really do my research, talk to people, cross-check. I mean, not always accurate, but that's how it has been. And luckily for me, I haven't really been out of Liberia for a long time. Usually I'm there, 2 years or so. I was there in 2022, and I went back. This time around, I was invited by a government institution to help provide some training and leadership development services. And so that was a little different. It was, just interacting with that particular government institution, in this case, the Liberia Revenue Authority, just really working with them to see that training come to fruition and be in community with them for the duration of that particular assignment. Was an eye-opening experience to be sort of embedded, if you will, with those leaders who are dealing in the political context, in the policy context, who are they're essentially the ones who are in the kitchen cooking. They're the ones who are collecting revenue, mobilizing revenue for development, for the country's development agenda to move forward. So just to learn from them, their perspectives and how they're doing their work, how they're interacting with these other agencies, it was something that was a very unique experience for me. I also had the opportunity to talk to people where I stay. I usually do that, whether it's a hotel or in my community, my home or something. I'm talking to the security folks, the kitchen staff. I'm talking to people at the front desk. I'm speaking to drivers, and speaking to ministers and people in government, academic institutions. That's how you get your information. That's how you really test and feel the pulse of the society. You don't necessarily just go and talk to the people in the policy making role, in the political role. I try to go down and really dig deeper and get people's perspective. How's the economy doing? The way you understand that is, you talk to a young person who is at the front desk of a fancy hotel, who's attending some community college, why he made a decision to take this job and go to this community college in Habel, not the University of Liberia. That's understanding that kind of decision-making process and understanding the economic conditions of the country. That's kind of how I collect my data and my information and try to vet them. How, on the overall, in terms of, oh, okay, so, did you see something different than when you were last there? And of course, the Roberts International Highway construction, it kind of started when I was there 2022. I saw a little bit of that, but the way the road have dismantled it and everything is scattered and the reconstructing that thing is different. It's very obvious. So from the airport, that's the first thing you see on your way to town. And then you get to ELWA intersection there. I mean, the construction going on everywhere there. So you might say, yes, this is progress, right, on the surface of it. But when you begin to dig deeper and peel the layers of the onion and talk to people, really go to talk to traders, business people, university teachers and students, and government bureaucrats, then you get different perspectives.
Thank you. So on the overall, what feeling did you come away with coming from Liberia?
He want to go back. So
no, on the overall, look, I mean, there's there's a lot to be desired. You sense chaos in the country. Look, I give you an example. The training I went to do. So we were three, one from Uganda, another person from Nigeria, and so we were at the Farmington Hotel at the airport for the whole week for the duration of the training and all these people. And then at the end of it on the weekend, they said, well, we'll take you guys on an excursion downtown Monrovia. And I said, how can you take me on an excursion in Liberia? I'm not, take these two other African brother and sister. And then I got off the van. But when they returned, I spoke to this lady who was my counterpart from Uganda. I said, what was your impression? You for the first time you've come to the city, you've seen Liberia a little bit, you've driven through the city, you've gone to the city center, they took them to the museum, to some landmark institutions, and got some gifts for them and things like that. She said, she's a very soft-spoken person. She said, Sir Leaf, I'm from Uganda. There's a lot of poverty. I see a lot of chaos. She said, but when I went downtown Monrovia and came back, I felt depressed. I'm more depressed than when I went downtown, right? So to me, that summed it up for me because I observed that as a Liberian too. I see the chaos. I mean, just the traffic, for instance, there's no rule of law in the traffic. No one respects anything. The government officials, they're in convoy. They say they're driving opposite direction towards you. They say, oh, they've designated this lane for them because they got to get to session, right? And I don't know. I'm trying to drive the proper lane. Somebody's coming straight up into me like that. It's chaotic everywhere. You really, truly have to dance that chaos in order to get anywhere. These are just some basic things on the surface of it. You try to see the disorganization of the system around you. Because these are indicators of how we organize our government, our governance, how we run things, how we run the state, how are these, how do we respect the laws in whether we're a rule of law society, how we make our people to follow rules, to follow system. Those are, I mean, people may overlook these things, but when you enter the country, there are some basic things you see right away, the infrastructure or the lack thereof, the chaos of the traffic and how things move. You get to a hotel or to a market or to an office, how people are conducting themselves and those kinds of things. I mean, these are the reality. These are not necessarily some criticism in a vacuum. These are really the reality of it. So from that perspective, nothing really changed substantively for me. That has always been there, and I kind of expected that, and I saw it.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Anthony C. He didn't even stop, not only stop it, he was all the way in Zozo. He went around the country. Mr. C, what are your thoughts? What did you see? What surprised you? What impressed you?
Dennis, I don't know where to begin. I was thorough in observing everything in Liberia. I mean, as much as I could see and get to, and people that I could talk to. Because the criticism everyone have had against me, oh my man, you're not in the country and you're saying all this. So to have gone and have seen it myself and experienced it, talking to people, I saw a country broken beyond repair, and everybody almost like trying to fend for themselves. And then I also saw chaos, and Amen was talking about that. Chaos in the street, for example. The keke riders and the pimpin riders, those guys don't have any respect for their own lives. A moving car, a pimpin rider will cross in front of you while your car is in motion. The citizens themselves, a moving car that will jump in front of you, they will tell the driver, but you have eyes to see. You are driving on a narrow road. A citizen will be standing by that road close to the car. They will not move. Sometimes you have to honk before they try to give you a little space. And I was thinking, but does this person not even have time for their own life? I was broken completely when I drove from downtown Monrovia to Mount Bushaw Island. The road from the Johnny Tucker Bridge all the way to Beaumont Bridge has gotten worse. That's 15 years ago since I left Liberia. To see that we have had now about 3 governments, if I'm not mistaken. 2 from where Ellen Bwaka now, I won't count Bwaka because he just got there. And that road remained the same, in some places worse. I was like, what have we been doing all these years? As a people, we cannot face this road. You have the Freeport there. We call it the gateway to the Liberian economy. And that is the major route. And it has gotten worse. Gentlemen, I'm like, wow. Between what they call Jamaica Road Junction to Logan Town Cinema, between there, that road is broken into pieces. So potholes. When it rains, that place flooded. It was like that when I left. It's gotten worse. You get to Beaumont Bridge and say, "Man, Douala." You get to Douala, the road there has gotten worse. Than it. Who are we that all these years our leaders have been driving here and this road here remain the same? That's one aspect of it. Politics has taken over the entire country. Enter a barber shop to cut your hair. Politics is why you were here. What kind of country is this? People are not talking about anything else. They're talking about Bwaka, they're talking about Wea, they're talking about Sir Joseph, they're talking about Dillon. Wherever you go, the young people are only talking about politics. Mm-hmm. It has consumed everything in the country. But how be it though? I saw young talent, local talents. We met a Liberian guy who is producing detergent. My friend Joker and I, we went there, we bought some, and we took them to Zozo because the Carol Lutheran Church were having a 100 years anniversary. And we bought, detergents from the local producer. He producing those things in Liberia. And I was amazed. He producing them, they bottle everything, they label them right there in Liberia. So that's one thing that I saw that gave me a little bit of hope. Then I saw some Liberian businesses too. Businesses owned by Liberians, some resorts, maybe 1 or 2 star resorts. I went there, I saw those places, entertainment centers everywhere. That's another thing I saw. And then is corruption is normal in Liberia. When I arrived, I didn't have the yellow book. So I approached her, "Hey, you don't have the yellow book, you got to pay for the yellow book." So I said, "How much is the yellow book?" He said, $20. I give the $20. Then I said, "They'll come on the side, you have to take the vaccine before we can issue the yellow book." They continued, they brought that they claimed that they have vaccine and it was completely filthy. I said, "No, I don't think this is safe So I'm not going to take that vaccine. Give me the yellow boat so I can go. He said, but if you don't want to take the vaccine, then you have to pay another $20. A friend of mine called Young Diploma, when I was going, he told me, he said, my man, don't carry your thing over there. When you arrive there, the post say, give you a small thing, give it to them and pass. You're not going to change the country just by arriving there. So I comply for another $20 just to get a yellow boat. And the person who issued me the yellow boat did not fill in the information correctly. And it was okay that this person was requested, and other people were behind me. The person didn't care about other passengers were behind me. She wanted that money. I gave the money, and the other people had to wait. Now, another experience I had with corruption was after I passed through getting to the immigration, one lady reached to me and said, hey, yeah, my hand here, just put our lady in here. She took me from the other line and carried me to the diplomatic line. And then my friend Joker had gone to meet me, and Joker saw me. He said, oh, Anthony is my guest. Can you people allow him to me? That was the reason why I did not pay some money to that other place. Openly, people are accepting bribes. And it's normal. If you don't do it, then you're not ready. Upon my return, I was breaking some fish. The guy called me. They called me in the cargo room, said, you have these bags? I said, yes. I said, do you have a certificate for the fish you carry? I said, no. Do I need a certificate? He said, yeah, you will need a certificate. He said, but why do I even have to come here? He said, no, we want you to be here before we search your bags. I said, I don't think I necessarily have. If there's anything in my bag that you don't like, you think that it's not supposed to go, take it out. Yeah, goal there was to get something from me. I said, well, I don't have money. Anything you think that I'm supposed to go, just take it out. Dennis, I'm saying this to say the way people survive in our country, corruption is okay. If you don't corrupt, you're not smart. I will have more to say than this, but as a broken country where people don't have respect for their own lives, there's chaos in the streets everywhere.
Thank you. Let me go to Thomas for his reaction, because he knows the place. He has the very recent memory than maybe all of us here. Thomas, Thomas, what's your reaction? Are you surprised by what he's saying, or is like they had too much picture of America in their head that they couldn't really see reality from the way it is?
Well, it doesn't surprise me a lot, because I was also back in Liberia in May 2022. And I mean, what I thought I was going to hear, and for the fact that they have just gone back at this point in time, it's not possible for them to compare.
Right.
But I think there's a bit of improvement on the issue of the traffic. Because, for instance, I hear the cars that are going to Cardware, for instance, there's a route now that they use. When you are coming, you come from a different direction. When you are going into Douala, you use a different direction. I understand no keke is now flying through the new bridge. They are all detoured towards, it's difficult now because the new bridge used to be the old bridge, and then they built the old one, so it's like the new. But all kekes are now going into Waterside. They can use the other bridge to go up. So I think there's a bit of improvement as compared to 2022 when I was back in Liberia. It was extremely chaotic. You had this motorbike union that had their own officers on the street with ratans in their hand. The police had practically abandoned the street to these non-state actors. They were the ones supervising the motorbikes. They were the ones responsible to make sure that if you don't have clearance, you cannot come on the main road. The kekes were all over. So I think there is a bit of improvement, but until you can compare, you cannot be able to see. But that chaos that is on the street, when I was there, sometimes you sit in car, you sit in keke, you just think they are going to march you out. Mm-hmm. So I used to be afraid. I was always praying. I got my admission at my next university. Then nobody came in here. Let me just go back. It was very scary. So I think there's a bit of improvement on the issue of the street. But in terms of the economy, the transition has taken place. I don't think there is a lot that has happened on the economy. So it's like everything is extremely crazy and difficult in the country.
Before I go to Mr. Sharif, and Sonny, Dr. Douglas talked about the despair. Do you see despair or do you see hope in the people eyes since we have a new government? Is it like, okay, and we've been going through a lot now, the old man is here to fix it? Did you see that? Or are people more despondent and say, oh, we thought we were heading somewhere, but it looks like things are not getting better? What did you see in your eyes?
Well, what I see is the people don't trust the politician. They don't trust our leaders anymore. The haircut you see on me here was the last barber shop I visited. There was a young man in there. He said, I'm not ever going to vote for any politician in this country. He ended that the one I will vote for is somebody who I have known throughout my life, but now they won't come to me tomorrow for me to vote for them. I'm not going to do it. These people are all the same. They don't trust the current administration. I don't know who they can even trust at this time. I don't know where they sometimes get their hope from that this person will do it better. At this point, the people, their despair has strengthened. They are hopeless in my position, in my opinion. And this is why I also want to say, I don't know of any official of this new government that is happy with the president and the government. Not one. Not even the Minister of Presidential Affairs, who is happy with this government.
And how you know that? Did you speak with them?
Dennis, I was there. I was in the center of power. I went everywhere. I went to the executive mansion. I saw people working physics.
Thank you.
Let me end with this that I missed, right? So there are some community roads they build here and then they pay. None. You don't see they posted the name for those streets. And so I'm like, okay, if I want to drive, I've been out of here for a long time. Can somebody give me direction that, hey, Anthony, as you're going, when you get to at least Dupont Road, you see the sign. This is Dupont Road you're driving on. Or this is Maglin Street. I don't see that. So even when you get into an intersection, you can't easily tell, except it's the place that you know all along. Why are they building roads and they are not putting the names of the roads, by the road so we can know that, oh, this is this road. So the guy driving me, I'm asking, what's the name of this road? And he will call the road. Say, but if I were driving, how would I know that I'm driving on Boma Bridge Road? They don't do that. You can't do this in this country. I mean, building roads, no names.
There, Anthony, there is some places you didn't see them, but yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to add something. When you talk about desperation, 2 weeks ago we had this big scandal breaking out. People don't pay attention. That the pastor of George Weah Church conned people out of $90,000 because they wanted to get visa to go to Australia, not to the U.S., not to France or Britain, but to Australia. They have no clue where it is.
Conference is not even to stay, but just to go on.
Yeah, but that's the sign of desperation. How people want to get out of that place. In Joshua Church, that the pastor was able to con people out of $90,000, $700 at a time to say, I'm going to get you a visa to go to Australia, someplace way you don't even know what it looked like.
Doug, why are you so? I mean, you are emphasizing the connection to George Weah Church as if he did it because he is George Weah Church.
No. I'm talking about the fact that he was a pastor who did that to people.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, George Weah is the biggest of cons, so I don't care. I would say that anytime.
Mr. Sharif, what's your reaction? Are you impressed by the report you are hearing?
No, I mean, impressed is not the right word. I cannot be impressed with something like this. I have to be depressed, right? There are lots of information here to digest, and this information is not good. But Thomas struck an important point, I thought, that, if you come from the United States a few days ago, and you're not comparing this to previous situation, then you will conclude that everything is really really bad. And so, but I tend to believe what everybody is saying. Look, for example, Dr. Dugley mentioned the criminalization. So the criminalization of state operations is something that has been going on for years, decades even, and nothing has been done about these things. So who is going to do something? So at this point, my hope was that, and it still is, Mr. Boyka. First of all, Mr. Boyka's promise, the first promise that in the next 90 days or whatever it was, and it's under the agenda, that there was going to be cleanup of these roads, major outlets into the interior, and so as a president of Liberia, you want to pinpoint certain areas where you think you can make the biggest impact. I think he carefully chose that, and because some of these constructions are going on, so I think I'm happy about that. Mr. Boyka is in 6 years. He's not going to be able to undo everything that has been done in this country for decades or a century even. So if he's able to map out the critical need areas and attack those critical need areas, I'm very happy. All of the things, for example, that Anthony mentioned, there's no one president who's going to be able to fix this in 6 years. Sometimes it may even take, 20, 30 years for some of these things to be addressed because of the rotten mess that has been left behind by previous leadership. So I think that when we're discussing these things, we have to put them in that context. So what is Mr. Boyka going to do efficiently? So let's watch and see where he's driving in the next year and couple of years, where he's driving, where his agenda is moving towards. And I think that he's very serious about road construction to the interior, which will allow farmers in the deeper interior to bring their farm goods to the main model roads of the country. And so if that's going on, that is a good sign that he's living up to the promises that he made, some of the promises at least that he made to the Liberian people. Now there's politics all involved in this thing. So we don't know how far that's going to go.
And we're going to do a pulse check. We're going to do a pulse check on some of these promises later on this show. I have a question for Mr. Shelley, but Dr. Douglas, 30 seconds.
No. I was going to ask, add to what Mohammed was just saying. When you talk about all these things, the problem is, how do you keep postponing this possibility of change, real change? You say maybe Boyka may not be able to. Boyka has every possibility to, because everybody perceives him as a one-term president, so he got nothing to lose, both age-wise, experience-wise. He can do the unthinkable. Can we push him into that direction somehow? Can you?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think that you already seen, for example, the roadmap to some of these things. For example, the war and economic crimes modality is being put in place. Is he going to be the one to be able to implement that in 6 years? You're seeing that these, the road constructions are put in place. So is he going to be the one to conclusively do those things? So when you do that and you combine that with the fight against corruption in a more realistic way, in the form of audits, if people are not stepping in the way, if courts are not stepping in the way, if legislature is not stepping in the way of some of these things, I think that you will see the green light to this. And then in 2029, someone else can pick it up, whether that be Amara Kone, whether that be Dalen, I don't know who someone else can pick up the mantle and run with it.
Thank you. And let us not forget that President Bouakai, he was there with President Salif for 12 years, and he just gave we are 6 years. But Mr. Salif, talking about where the country is now and the hope, I like the question that Dukle asked. Should we keep postponing? You know, in my village, they say, don't put your cattle near the load if you know you are able. Do you think President Bouakai put his cattle to the right place?
Oh man, I think so. It's not a one leader problem. Liberia's problems are so indelible and so intractably difficult and difficult not in the sense that we are not able to move forward. We are not able to make progress, but we're so far behind and in denial of that fact, and are not making taking active measures, not putting things in place aggressively enough, in my view at least, that will help us to make at least some semblance of progress. I mean that's what. Look, I spent 2 days in Accra, or I had a flight problem, and then people say, "Oh, you compare with Ghana." I lived in Ghana during refugee time. I spent 2 years or so there, and of course, I'm from Liberia. I've lived and worked there for 7 years. I've been back every other year, so I can compare, right? And I spent time in Sierra Leone as well as a refugee, and I've transited there several times since. When I talk about taking steps, it's not like Ghana is so terribly far ahead of us, but what they're doing is they're making progress. They are investing, they're putting their money where their mouths are, and engaging in what they call a public investment, like some of the big capital investments. You're trying to improve power, electricity, build dams, build your roads, and that's what President Barker is talking about, roads. So that's a big move. If they really can invest in the road connectivity, in electricity, and rural electrification. And I met with the new director for the Liberia Rural and Renewable Energy Agency. Those are some of the discussions I engage in and say, well, what is your vision? What are your plans for the country? Because if you have electricity, places are electrified, right? Government, say health centers, county centers, schools and clinics and things like that. And then you try to connect the rest of the country in a strategic way through some grid, whether it's the West African Power Pool or it's LEC or some other energy source. Then you're making progress. And then you connect the road, every county capital, like President Barker campaign on. At least that will give people some confidence, investors some confidence. Those are the kinds of things that I am looking for as indicators that, listen, we're thinking in the right direction. It may be difficult. We are behind significantly, but at least we have our hearts in the right places.
So just for 2 seconds. So what, in your view, and all of you, do you think that President Bouakai is putting his finger on that? Yes, this is what I'm going to do, and that you see that he's doing it. For instance, roads, right? And so you talk about the road from Freeport to Bogmine Bridge. You talk about the electricity issue. You talk about food, and many other things. Is there any one thing that you really trust that President Bouakai has his foot on the gas, and you think he's going to deliver on this? 2 seconds, each of you.
I'll start first.
Yeah.
No, I'll say, I like what, the way Cousin Salif put it. But how can you do any of those things if you spend 90% of government revenue into salaries and entertainment and all of that, buying cars and salaries, and how can you do any of that? You can't. So unless Buckeye decide to say, okay, I'm a one-term president, next year I'm going to cut the state budget by 50%. Our constitution, the constitution was written at Harvard, but everything we do in Liberia is kind of based on what happened in Virginia. It's the Speaker of Virginia House Representative makes $36,000 a year, and the representative make 19,000.
It's a part-time position.
Yeah, they don't, but our first president came from
So,
there.
so quickly,
everything
I want us to move, right? What is that one thing that you think President Bouakai has his finger on and that you think he's going to deliver on? Is it road? Is it a food issue? Is it electricity? Is it crime?
I think electricity. I think electricity is one thing that benefits everyone. Transport, yeah, be expensive during the time, but I see electricity benefits schools, commerce, business at night, and everything else. I think electricity is number one, and I've been saying that
Is he
since.
going to accomplish that? Is President Bouakai laser focused on that so he accomplish it? Because you see, when you put two rats to roast two rats at the same time, one thing will burn. What is it that President Bouakai is focusing on?
Dennis,
being president.
Dennis,
Yeah.
if I may, I would say none. I can't think of what President Bouakai can put a finger on now that he will deliver to our satisfaction as a people in the nation. I don't know which one he can do that with. I disagree with Dr. Du by saying, well, if your budget, the recurring expensive is taking about 92%, it becomes difficult for you to do other things. Practically, yes, if you only rely on the budget, it will be difficult. My disagreement is you don't have to rely on the budget on it. You can take loan. For me, I'm working.
Loan is part of the budget.
Dennis, you can say that. I won't disagree with that much, right? But he was talking about the budget, and you are spending 92 or 90%, as he put it. You can take loan and put it in the budget, to agree with you. And then let's say what you borrowing is $1 billion or $2 billion, you commit it to the road, then of course you will be able to achieve that. So I think that is a way that can be done. The question I'm asking now is that if Bouakai wants to do roads, what is the plan for the road? Right. I mean, any of you can.
The question again, I want us to be quick. Is he doing anything well that you think he's laser focused on and you think he's going to accomplish?
Well, look, Dennis, the premise of the question. So this is a new president. He's barely been off 6 months. One thing we know is laser focused on that is stated objective he wants to accomplish is roads, road connectivity. So every county capital, he wants to connect them.
You think he's going to do that?
Well, I mean, we've seen him making some moves, and people criticize them, say, "Oh, you haven't paved the road, you that dirt road," but at least they are opening it up, roads, and roads. That's what they're saying. That's what they seem to be, laser focused on.
Thomas.
So there was something that was said earlier about the president being a one-term president. That issue of being a one-term president can be an asset. It can also be a liability. Because like was said earlier, Liberia is a country of elections. Every time we complete one electoral cycle, we start to discuss the next electoral cycle. Nobody in Liberia talks about what we are going to do today to be able to move the needle on access to education, access to water, human rights, and all of that. Everybody starts to discuss 2029.
Next elections. Yeah.
And the president is only going to be in charge between this year and 2026. By 2027, everyone is going their way. So he will have to make sure that this is something that he can use as an asset to be able to move the needle on development in that country. And the beginning point of that will be to address the issue of corruption. If there is corruption, we will not build the roads. If we build it, it will not be sustainable. If there is corruption, we will not have electricity. If we have it, it's not going to be sustainable. So I think this is where he really needs to start. If not, people are just giving him this year and next year. By the time they see that he's not putting his foot down, everybody will go on a hustle spree.
Do you think his foot is down?
I think he's trying to put it down. I don't know if he has reached now.
But Thomas, given the composition of the government and the type of coalition he has built up, you think he will be able to achieve his objectives in arrests, rule of law, this and that, blah blah blah?
Well, I think, like you always say, it's a thank you cabinet. It depends on how long this appreciation is going to go. If he gives everyone like a year, and by next year, and as we discuss this, I'm just thinking perhaps when we wait for the National Development Plan to come, the Ministry of Finances, it will be out in September. So we clearly see what are the vision that they are articulating. If they can articulate it well and be able to commit resources to it. On the issue of the roads, for instance, I think we have commitment from Ganta now all the way down to almost Redru. They are already World Bank, African Development Bank, they are commitments. So it's going to be left with the absorptive capacity to be able to move these projects forward. So there's a lot that he can do. But if you allow this thank you cabinet to be there where everyone's loyalty is to the party that allowed them to come into the coalition, it's going to slow them down. But if they can appreciate you for a year, if you are not doing well, you go, and they bring real technicians and technocrats to be able to move the process forward, I think he can do a lot within the remaining 4 or 5 years that he will have.
And I like when you said this one-term issue can be an asset or liability. Liability in terms of when you know that the president is not going to run, your loyalty may switch to the president who you think is going to be the next president. Mr. Sharif, I want you to conclude on this now so we can move on to the next. What do you think President Bouaka, right as of today, is doing well? That you see signs that, okay, if he focuses on this one, because you can do all at the same time. It's just impossible. I mean, I see roads, I see lights, I see food, I see healthcare, I see the crimes and the chaos that everybody talk about. What can he focus on, and what is he focusing on right now?
Yeah. To before I answer that, Thomas mentioned every time an election cycle is done, we're discussing next election. Yes, that's what we are. I mean, the world over, this is normal. In the United States, right after election, you're talking about the next election. I think Liberia is no different, and I think we should entertain those discussions. The frequency of election, it's important to hold people account, to hold elected officials accountable. At the very least, they need to hear that language in their ears over and over and again. So that is important. It's an important reminder that you're not there forever. To your question, I think President Bouaka is laser focused on roads, and this is, he understands that decentralizing development, going into the interior of the country, that is an important way to grow the Liberian economy and to lessen the burden on people in the interior. Dennis, years and years ago, when we would travel from Zwedru to Ganta, it was easy. It was very, very easy. I mean, by the time you blink your eyes, you were in Ganta already. And so if he is able to connect Greenville to Monrovia, Harper to Monrovia, all these different places, Vonjama to Monrovia, Robertsport to Monrovia, then he has done a great job. So I think this is something he's laser focused on, and he is doing it because right now the road construction has reached to the city of Zwedru, believe it or not.
And we still didn't get our yellow machines yet. What? How many for Sino and Granger?
Well, you know the politics in this yellow machine issue. So I hope that all these politics will subside. That that this will become a reality.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Top Talking Thursday. Our next issue is on this retreat. The Senate had a retreat in in Buchanan. Now the representative will be next to have a retreat. I've started following government since 1978 when I think Tubber went to Greenville. I've not heard of the Senate and all these retreat. Maybe it happened because I was not paying too much attention since I was. But it's retreat. There has been a lot of confusion on this one. It started with news getting out there that they were having retreat and each senator was getting 13,000 USD. Multiply that by 30 and you know what that number is. And they have come up to refute and said, no, it's not. It's not that 30. It's not 225,000. It's not 300,000. It's just 50,000. And so we started looking at some senators. I personally called my friend. I've been knowing him since 1988, Mr. Amarakone. I said, hey, what's up this thing? He said, well, it was a friendly talk, so we can divulge some of these things. But what he was saying was, oh, I've just entered the city. I'm going to see what it's all about. I read on his Facebook post, this is what he's saying. The allegation that the Senate spent $700,000 of taxpayers' money on a 2-day retreat in Buchanan is inaccurate. Doing so would have been unconscionable. The retreat cost $50,000, all went into the Buchanan economy. The Senate will issue an official response. People were looking at Darius DeLong too. They said, what does DeLong say? DeLong too came up and said his own. If I have that. He said, many people are asking me today about $700,000 allegedly spent on the recent trip. He said, I would have simply ignored them if it were not for this reason. But to be frank, regarding the $700,000, it was spent, that is false. Today, we have the official statement coming from the pro tem. And this is what she said. Is the purpose of the retreat, which was attended by 108 persons, including senators, securities, and drivers, support, staff, protocols, and blah, blah, blah. And the purpose, and there's the thing, the aim is setting the Senate legislative agenda, focusing on transparency and accountability and audit of the Senate, decentralization of the budget, including programs, digitization of the Senate, and the review of the Senate rule, among others. The Liberian Senate wished to state that the 4-day retreat was $50,000, and it covered accommodation, rental, catering services, daily sustained allowances, transportation, secretarial services, security arrangement, and so on and so on. According to them, that was what went down. Mr. Salif, this is governance. Are you, the purpose of the retreat is that I'm not retreat. I mean, my youth in church, we had a retreat when we came to power. Our community government, we had a retreat.
Yeah.
The Senate needs that, right? Should it have a retreat?
Yeah. Every institution needs retreat. Look, we can't compare our Liberian government to the U.S. government. Even the U.S. government committees do have retreats. Retreats are meant to organize the house, like they said in our official release, right? I mean, some of these people are just newly elected. They don't know one another. They need to understand the rules of the institution. They need to organize their staff. There are all kinds of things. If they do well, that retreat can really serve them well, to be on the same page, to set an agenda. What is the legislative agenda that's coming from the executive? What's the role the Senate is going to play in this? What are the critical areas? Are there institutional reform issues that donors and others are throwing at them? How do they respond to that? You saw some of the digitization of the Senate. The legislature does not have a website. The Senate does not have an official functional website. For instance, senators don't have email that is in the Senate's name, for instance. So this is embarrassing. So if they're coming together to say, look, we want to really put our house in order under the leadership of this new pro tem Senator Kamala Lawrence, that is a good thing. $50,000 in the grand scheme of things, it may sound really big, but if they use it for the intended purposes that they've described to us here, I think it was money well spent.
Thank you. Mr. Sharif, they said they went there for digitizing, to have a website, the Senate rule. Do you have to go to Buchanan for this, or you can sit right there at Capitol Building and do the same thing? What do you think?
Yeah, so before I answered this question, my learned brother, Ahmed, I trust his assessment on some of these this particular issue, and I also do trust the judgment of the senator from Bapolu County and the response that he gave you. All that said, I don't think that a retreat is a necessary way to talk about building a website. a retreat is not a necessary way to know one another, for example, or to talk about some of the critical issues that you would like to talk about. I think the concern here for me is just looking at the fact that there is a need for more accountability around these issues. So if you're going to a retreat, the Senate has to let the Liberian people know how much this is going to cost ahead of time, and so that the Liberian people is in on this, so that everybody knows exactly what is going on. Because there are people in the Senate, Dennis, believe it or not, whose judgment that I trust very much. And so, and I don't want to be disappointed by something like this. And I think that what Ahmed said, yes, a retreat is a good thing, but I believe that there's a lot to be done. For example, there are senators and representatives who never go home. They never go home to retreat with their constituents. They never go home to bring projects home, as they say in the United States, to bring home the bacon. They never go home to do these things that a senator or a representative should do for his or her constituents. And so I am concerned about those issues more than it is, to have a retreat.
Dr. Dukley, have you attended one of those?
Yes, I did once, twice, but it was always for one day. You go in the morning with presidential leave, you get it at 9 o'clock, everybody is seated, everybody talk, lunch, finish at 5 o'clock, small entertainment, and you go home. Nobody sleeps over. I think the problem is beyond the issue of retreat. Retreat is a normal thing, as everybody is saying. You have a corporation, you have a government, or whatever. You have an entity, you have retreat with your people and say, okay, let's sit just among ourselves with no distraction to talk about what we need to do for the next 6-7 months. But the issue is about morality and looking at the conditions of the states you're in. That you are running the poorest country in the world, maybe the second or third or 10th poorest country in the world. You call yourself people who want to develop a nation and poverty, provide education. But you don't. When you see a Liberian senator takes about, we spent $270,000 in one senator, what do they do? A U.S. senator gets $174,000. So we're going to send the senator who's making $280,000 in Liberia to come to talk to the American senator who's making $150,000 and say, we need money from you because we are poor. Can you understand that? We don't understand the moral issue. That's the problem. That's what I'm talking about, criminalization. How did I get this money? The president wants something from the House or the Senate, he puts in a budget. The Senate wants something from the president, they put in a budget. So it's a criminal enterprise running the government, the states. That is the problem. It's insane. How does a country like Liberia pay people $200,000-$300,000 a year? Does that make sense to anyone? Forget about a retreat. Retreat, you can put a good agenda together and say, okay, we'll go to retreat in Bassa. We're going to discuss 3-4 issues, and these are the issues. Be prepared, bring your papers, and da. And then after the retreat, since it's on the road, we all sleep in Bassa. We have one room for everybody, and the next morning you get up, and then you get on your car and you go. You don't waste people money. But we have a runaway legislature that doesn't care. They've been able to set their own budget since, somebody told them, hey, you know what? It's not the president that's supposed to set the budget. It's you guys. That was 2008, 2007. And they said, oh, yeah, maritime people making $25,000. Why should we be making $5,000? And then the president would pass a bill. Well, we don't want brown envelope. Let's put it in the budget. So that's how we criminalize the government. So we spend 90% of our money supporting useless people.
Mr. Cannon, there have been a lot of talk around how much they spend. Some say the Senate, the allowance alone, 125,000, facilitators 25,000, feeding 75,000, accommodation 25,000, staff, security, and driver 25,000, making it 275,000. Whether it's 275,000 or 50,000, do you think the issue is on the transparency part? Because I heard about this only when they were already there. Is it that they are not coming forward with information? That's why there's so much confusion. Do you have problem with the cost or really the intent? Right now, can we say this is what they have accomplished? Will we get such a report? Does this qualify all the T's and the? I heard Prince Moise say, "Don't forget now, we make our own rules, so we can do these things." And what's your take on this? Are they just want to have something because you are looking for a place to spend money? They have this constituency visit free of 10,000 and all that kind of stuff. It's in the budget. Criminalization, as Dr. Dukla would say.
You see, we have a very serious problem in Liberia. It's over 20 years since the Civil War ended. If you go back and add up all of the budgets that we've passed from 2006 till today, it's billions of dollars. A country of 5 million people, let's say 5.6 million people. But you realize that almost 50%, I don't know what the exact number is, are still in poverty. So it means all of these budgets that we've passed, it really doesn't get to these other people who are still below the poverty line. It's just a small group of people who these resources are going to. So I think the bigger problem, like was said, is this dissatisfaction around the effectiveness and efficiency of the legislature. People don't just trust that they are working in the interest of the Liberian people. We spoke earlier about concessions, how they are involved in it. People have construction companies. The same thing happened with the decentralization fund, the county development fund. They establish their own companies and take the resources and relocate them back to Monrovia. And this is a very poor country. So people are just generally dissatisfied with these people. And we are in this conundrum where the only way we have to deal with them is to vote them out. And then we vote the next people to go and do the same thing. Because so I think the issue, 9 years, the issue is not generally with the amount. Like was said earlier, it's a good thing. Every organization, even where I previously worked, after a year or the beginning of the new year, you have this retreat, you go and set your agenda. And some of the things that they said they are going to do in the objectives of the agenda, they said they went to review their own laws and rules. They went to discuss the issue of security and access because a lot of people are there because that's where the money is. They said they were going to discuss decentralization and modernization. But we are going to go the next 5 years and those issues will still be on the table for discussion, where they have over $60 million in the budget to address these issues. What is the difficult thing about digitizing the work of the Senate? Have a website that tracks all of the laws that you pass. Sometimes you send a law to the legislature and in 2-3 months, you can't find it. Even the lawmakers don't have it. What is so difficult about having a website? What is so difficult about having an electronic system for voting? But I bet you in 2-3 years, this will be something that they will be working on. So to me, it's a good thing to go to retreat, let them go and figure out. They come from different political parties. Maybe the retreat will help them work together a little bit more and be able to, narrow down their individual party interest to work in the interest of the country. That is a good thing. I'm not just comfortable with these budgets that have no decimal points. It was 50,000, exactly 50,000, no 0.231, 0.000, 0.522. So we still will have to wait for Moise said that they will ask the finance office to be able to develop the report for this. Some people are saying it was 50, but they used 47,000, which was also an exact amount. But to me, the bigger issue is not with the retreat. Like they say, other government agencies been having retreat. But I think there's just this dissatisfaction about the performance of this legislature. And it's not only coming from the citizens. Right now, the judiciary is complaining a lot. Their allotment in the national budget is 17 million. The entire judiciary. And we have 103 people taking almost $60 million. So I think the bigger issue, like Doug said, is around the morality. People don't just trust these people.
Thank you. And let me welcome Honorable Graves. Honorable, welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me, Dennis.
Thank you.
And good evening to everybody else.
Thank you. Mr. Tia, we today, when this happened, I called again. I reached out to Mr. Connor, Senator Connor, my friend, and say, hey, you said you are going to get back to me. He said, and he referred me to the pro tem statement and said, I agree with everything that she said. Connor also said, hey, the money was there and he supported the Buchanan economy. In other words, you want to support the economy, we got to pass through somebody. But shall we say you trust them? So what can I say? Our reporter in Monrovia also reached out to Senator Francis Dopo. He couldn't answer. Reached out to Senator Prince Moy and also Senator John Bay. And they couldn't answer their call. And they reached out to the representative, say, yeah, in fact, we are having our own too. Mr. C.
Dennis, isn't this shameful? Very shameful. So we are here, and the legislature has decided to have a retreat, and the budget is not known to the people that is set. Isn't this similar to what Mr. Bwaka is doing today? He came to the Africa-US Summit. We don't know the budget to this date. The Korea-African Summit, we don't know the budget to this date. These are people we elected. They are spending our tax dollars. We do not know how much these trips costing the president. And now we have legislature having a retreat. They're using our money, and they can't tell us how much is that. They are lying. It is not $50,000. And they know that to be true. Just look at the way Amara Coleman is responding, pretending as though he had no idea. The Senate is having a retreat, and you have to go and counter check as a senator before you can know what the budget is of a retreat that has been agreed upon maybe months ago. And Amara Conner and other people want us to believe them that they have no idea there was no discussion concerning a retreat and how much it will cost. And now that the retreat is ongoing or has ended, he's now trying to find out what the budget actually was and telling you, well, believe whatever has been written? Are we fools here? Of course not. So you are leading a country that is impoverished. You have that giant size building there. You can have the retreat right there. And the justification that, oh, well, we spend the money in the local economy in Buchanan. I mean, nothing wrong with that. They have the right to travel to the counties and host events there. I like the idea. 50,000, 108 people, and they are including security, transportation, allowances, and all that. That is a big lie in my judgment. They are not telling the truth. And here's the deal. The truth will come out. The truth will come out. And these people, just as they have proven to us who they actually are, they don't care about the pains of the Liberian people. It is all about enjoying themselves. And they have no idea about one of the main reasons for having a retreat is digitization, to create a website. Every organization that I have been part of, I spearheaded the effort of us having a website. And they are all functional to this date. Darius DeLong, when he first got elected, was helping the effort to build the website of the legislature. I reached out to an office just to tell me, well, that I know was it 54, it ended, the work was not done. Senator DeLong will try again. Do you have to go for a retreat to make a decision whether or not to be a website? Since the war ended, I mean, this is giving a bigger picture of our country. Since this war ended, the first branch of government does not have a functional website. Our lawmakers, most of them don't even have their own website. I think I saw Amara had something. The law does not have anything. How do we contact these people in the first place, Dennis? And you have to go to a retreat to tell us that? They are talking about going for a retreat to agree to an audit? For you to be audited, you got to go to a retreat to make a decision? Is that what they want to tell us? You guys are not talking tough.
No,
let me go to Ahmed Salim.
Dennis,
I'm in speech here, please.
Listen, you call my name, sorry.
He's being intellectualizing the discussion. I agree with him, you know, retreats are necessary. But look, you just from Liberia, you saw the conditions of our people. They can make they can decide that they will have a special session to make a decision on these things we want to do. They don't have to spend $50,000 of our money and go to Buchanan and can't justify that we're putting the money in the local economy. That is shameful, and they can do better than that.
And Mr. Salim, before you come in, they say they retreat the agenda, the Senate legislative agenda, focusing on transparency and accountability and audits of the Senate, decentralization of the budget.
Yeah, so decentralization of the national budget, because the budget is the law, is the law of the country.
Isn't that what they're supposed to do in office?
Exactly.
Oh no, hold on, Dr. Duke. We are conflicting two things. Listen, Anthony, I'm not a government official. I'm not a spokesperson for the government. I try to be as objective as I do it, right? Retreat in and of itself, we can't beat it down. It's not a bad thing. They just had a cabinet retreat. You can say, oh, how early? You're just starting, you haven't retreated already. But Dr. Duke just confirmed, President Sirleaf's time, I was working in Liberia in the second half of her administration. Several cabinet retreats happened. They went to Jillijua, they went to the very Buchanan and Ganta and other places. So retreats are not bad things in and of themselves. Transparency, however, an open government I think that's where the crust of the matter lies, where there are different figures, you know.
What they're doing on the retreat, the agenda, does that matter too?
Well, yes, the agenda matters. Some of the things they listed there are legitimate things. To my look, when you say digitization, Dennis, I'm not an IT expert or anything like that, but digitization is not just website, in my view. I recall, I worked for a donor government. They were investing money in helping to digitize the legislature. The legislature. So modernization, digitization, things that we criticize them for, if they say, look, let's pause here, let's bring our staff and everybody try to understand our work and how to get these things done. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, how you do it, how much money you put in that, how transparent are you about that to your constituents, to the country, is totally a different question in my view.
Thank you.
Let me give you just an example. Okay, no, go ahead. No,
because I had Dr. Wokley were talking agriculture. He said, Liberia is like you go to a doctor and they give you a diagnosis. Let's say you have migraine. And you say, okay, let me go for second opinion. The second opinion says the same thing. You go for the third, you go to the fourth, fifth, sixth, 20 opinions saying the same thing. Go and take the treatment. You're thinking, have they not know how many times have they come to the conclusion that we need to digitize, and you are still having retreat for digitization? Honorable Graves.
Okay, Dennis, my uncle got a different story. He went to the doctor. Doctor said you must stop drinking and smoking. He said, I'm going to get a new doctor.
Meanwhile, he's still drinking and smoking. Honorable Graves.
Yeah.
The retreat. Was it necessary? The issues that they are discussing, or is the issue with the money they are spending? Is it a return on investment? Because we may not know what the outcome is. It's like, okay, so what did you accomplish? We know you went there. Is this something that we're going to know, or is it will the outcome outweigh the cost, and will we not be talking if the Senate actually mean business and do and accomplish something?
Thank you. I think I've listened to one or two concerns and points from across the panel, which is good. I mean, the concerns are all necessary, but because it has to do with the optics of what is happening, looking at the situation we have now in Liberia and what people are made to understand, especially when you turn on the different news outlets and the different political debates. Everybody's talking about the country being corrupt. Everybody's talking about the hardship in the country. Nobody understands how the government is working. Nobody understands the inner working system of government, all of that. So the optics of this will go a long way. But having said that, retreats for any institution, international corporation, or what have you, as well as Liberia, the Liberian Senate. That is a very important part of our government. It's a standard practice. It's an international best practice. Now we just had elections where we just not even a year ago, where the country is severely bifurcated politically, and the political tension, and we all came on the same platform and we're crying, there should be reconciliation, there should be a means for us, softening the talks and having political oppositions and what have you. But different political groups come together and interact, cooperate, and what have you. They just set a good platform. Because when I look at it, I'm looking at it from a different angle. I know what to put there, the agenda, but I'm looking at it first of all from team building, because I know in this case it's going to help build empathy and cooperation between colleagues and members of the Senate from different political backgrounds, different political parties, which can lead to better problem solving in the future. So if you want to have an agenda for the country interest and the benefit of the countries, the country economically, we have people are local here. I mean, people are together who can work in unison and not having no divisions and stiffness and this group. So what I saw in this was to see that they all decided to go at that gathering, at that venue. That was a plus. I think that was a big move. We're looking at the money, yes, but it also improved communication.
We don't know the money actually.
Yeah, it also improved communication. So it provides a chance for members to connect on a deeper level, because passing through the halls and the corridors of the legislature is insufficient. Somebody don't even speak to each other. So it gave you the opportunity to have deeper communication, honest and more open communication, and know each other better. And then so there are a lot of things when people talk, when people are working together in unison, when it's symmetrical, that's when you get results. So when people are distant and are disenchanted and disenfranchised, are local here, you don't get work done. So in as much as we look at the monetary value, we look at all this. I mean, it's a best practice. I mean, I can put in the optics aside. It is in line with international standard. Now, on the contrary, the logical extension to this will be yes, Liberia. The logical extension to this will be yes, Liberia is impoverished. Yes, Liberia having problem. We're having economic challenge and what have you. So what? So we should not elect officials in the government. Government should not function, because every function of government that's supposed to be legit will be criticized and will be seen as additional spending. These monies are budgeted and accounted for, and it do not go to another government agency. It's not transferred like that. So that money, even if it didn't go to it's kept, it's going back to the coffers and is rerouted back to them the next fiscal year. So people benefiting from it. The last part, Dennis, I think I just heard it say 100 and how many people? 100 and
108.
108. So we do the calculation. We do the quick math. 50,000. According to them, I would take them for the words. I won't take anybody who gossip in DC. 50,000. If you go 50,000 around, we're talking for 4 days. 4 days, 108, 50,000.
Yeah,
we're looking at DSA. We're looking at them. We're looking at 100, something between 100 and 125 per person. That's reasonable enough, and to have another part of our country to have the economic mobility in Grand Bassa. That money is recycled. It's in the country. They didn't fly plane. They didn't go out of the country. They didn't go other places. They use it right in Liberia. in a place that money could be recycled and people could benefit from it. So I mean, I think I find it reasonable, and I think it's a best practice in line with international standard.
Thank you. Thank
Dennis,
you.
can I make a quick point?
We'll wait and see, what the outcome will be. Yeah, Tom, please conclude. I want us to go to our last point.
I mean, the retreat and the agenda has something that I have interest in and normally talk about, and it's the issue of decentralization of budgets and programs. I think this is something that the Senate really needs to take a step back and really assess our entire decentralization reform in Liberia. If the House is going to go to their retreat, I also think they should think critically about this, because we are making a fundamental error on the way we are proceeding with decentralization in Liberia. We are now moving to the point of decentralizing budgets and programs, and we've not really defined the roles and responsibilities of the different levels of government. We've not defined what the counties will be responsible to do. We've not defined what the cities will be responsible to do. And we are going to send resources to them without assigning expenditure responsibilities to them, which is extremely wrong. There was a mistake that was done with the Local Government Act, where those assignment of responsibilities was extracted from the law before it was passed, because the 54th legislature said the law was too long. They didn't have the time to review it. So the law was passed without actually assigning responsibilities to the counties. So there will be no accountability between the local governments and the central government in terms of who will do what. But we are making forward with sharing money and sending it to the local governments. So I think this is something they really need to think through so that we can get it right. Because if we don't get it right, we are going to run into accountability issues in the future. So I hope this is something that they are critically thinking about so that we can resolve this. Right now, as part of the national plan that they are developing, they are also developing county development plans. But what is it that the counties will do their plan on when the responsibility is not clarified? So I just hope this is something, as part of their discussions, they can critically look at so that we can get this right. So that we don't do decentralization and then we start a couple of years from now, we start to complain and we reverse the whole process.
Thank you. And the whole thing, when I saw that the pro tem just wrote this, what's wrong with putting this out there even before the retreat, right? So when I was reading it, it appears to me that they were only putting things out there because there was an outcry. So at least a little bit of transparency will help. Let's see, if you are at this program, I mean, you have your brochure about the activities, put it out there, because somebody is keeping our money and they can just get up and use it any kind of way they want. And they say, well, we can make our own rules. And the next thing is, hey, if you don't like it, vote them out. That's 9 years.
Dennis, there's something that we have to look at also. This level of scrutiny on government spending money is new. I think elections, social media, and a new level of consciousness, all that contribute. And I think it's new. We have to think about it, because now Boca came to the U.S. The first question people ask, "What did we get?" He went to Korea. They asked, "What did we get?" And they had they say, how much this cost? How much you take a plane? Who paying for it? Why are you getting a free plane? So these are questions that so you can see.
And why is that? Why do you think it's new? Because
it's new. It is new. It's like people are waking up to the fact that the state actually belongs to them. That they can question people. That we can sit and say, hey, how much do you spend on this retreat? I agree with the ambassador, right? I think we had discussed that earlier. Everybody agreed with the necessity of having retreats. Any government. I think it was the financial aspect and the fact that it was this whole thing about $270,000, $10,000, $5,000. No, everybody's denying, and then you have this blanket statement from the pro tem that comes out, doesn't say anything and doesn't deny anything, except attacking the press. I think that was the problem. And it was more defensive than actually saying, okay, we did this and this is what we did. If I were her, I would say, okay, when you do that, give me a list of how much you spend on hotel, how much you spend on food, how much you spend on gasoline, and how much you spend on etc. And then you put that to the test and say, this is what we spend, how will you spend Liberian people money to do this? And then you add an addendum with the 5, 6 issues that you discussed and where you reach decision on it, and say that will be on our website if you have one.
After the retreat. And one of the pro tem has said whether she rented place too, but anyway, that's different.
And where would they even put that report? They don't even have the website. I mean, we have to go. We have to go to the Senate.
They use their Facebook. And I like how my friend Amara put it. He said all of the money went into the Buchanan economy. All right, that takes us to our next thing. President Bouaka is in office now. We almost 5 months, and there are some big things that he promised us, and he started doing already. So I want us to do a quick pause check. And the few that come to mind: roads. We saw the story about the yellow machine and how it went down, and then my colleague, Mr. Sheriff, always happy that the yellow machines are working, and hopefully, the Ganta Hapo Highway will be complete by that time so that I can go. Because, I mean, after the thank you cabinet, that's what makes some of us hopeful that the superintendent job is coming. So, roads. Then the asset recovery, how are we doing? What's the pulse check? We have audit. Remember when the president promised there will be forensic audits? In fact, he started with 3. He withdrew some of them. And then we have the War Crimes Court. Asset declaration. $10,000 for 10,000 young people will be trained. I remember in February, it said Madam Edwina Crum, chairperson of the LTA, has announced the LTA commitment to implementing President Joseph Bouaka initiative to provide digital skills training for 10,000 young people within 6 months of his administration. These are all the things that he promised. Honorable Greaves, we're doing a pulse check here. You think, where are we with these? Are we there yet? You can pick anyone and just let's go around the room for 2 minutes each.
We will get there. And I think we're still slowly getting there. I think I was one of the persons on this same platform initially at the beginning who said the incoming administration should lower expectations, and because when you're on the political stage and coming in as a leader in leadership running the country, there are 2 different ball games. It's they got a saying where when you're so hyper and you're excited and you're falling, you think you're flying until you hit the ground, and then the sense comes to the mind that, oh wow, I was falling. So you don't know that you'll get there. I know he was vice president. I know he served in government before for many years, had a lot of experience, but being president is a different thing. Now, for somebody else who understands the international circle and the way to work, I'm still privileged to be around the international circle. And I've worked in government, chairing Liberian leadership on European affairs, the EU delegation, all of that. The way the workings are done, the global system and the demographics is not as we see as a sovereign nation, Liberia. It is all integrated into one institution headed by the big, well-known powers. They're very sophisticated, influential. A country like Liberia will be assigned interest groups, international corporations. So those people come in, they run the country. We're like inhabitants. We don't own the land. We just think we own it. We're made to believe that's psychological conditioning. They come in and they make all these promises to our leaders and tell them, hey, the first phase, this. So it's not an independent mindset. It's not an independent decision taken by our leaders to say, I'm going to build roads. I'm going to do this. All the promises you hear are from, I will use the word, I hate to use it, but from handlers. Now, what they do is that then they give you a pinch of the grant just at the beginning to make you relax and okay. The next thing you know, they start to pinch you, squeeze you. They start making demands. So it's announced, it's broadcasted that we're going to do this. You have our partners also buttressing that yes, we're going to help this, we're going to help the country, but they put in a stranglehold, and nobody know that tightness. So these are some of the things we face. So when the leaders come in.
So in the case of President Bouaka on these promises, we shouldn't expect much. That's why basically that's
just because it's not of his own. He wants to do these things, but there are people who are promising these things through him, and they are also making demands. They're also making gains, and even as much as we're dragging back and forth, they're still taking. Our country is rich. They're still taking what they want. And now, if he backs at them, so he takes the blame, he takes the burden. If he backs at them, he's in trouble. The next thing we start taking demonstration, non-stop protests, change of government, or all kinds of things. That's why in the last meeting I told you, I said coercive diplomacy. If anybody understood that, and I just left it short, I didn't want to go too much in detail. That tells you the advanced way of saying neo-colonialism, coercive diplomacy, where they get you covertly or they got you overtly, but you're in their hands, in the palms. On the issue of the war crimes code, we should just forget it. I told you before there will be no war crimes code in Liberia, and I still maintain.
Thank you. Let me go to Thomas here on all these promises. Let's just do a quick pause check. Where are we?
I think a couple of things are happening on the rules. As said earlier, even before now, there have been some commitments on, I think, Ganta all the way to Tapeta, Banga to, I think, almost to either Konya or Vuntama. So I think the thing this government needs to do is to make sure that the commitments that they met on the book, some of which they even negotiated before we had took power, they can just follow through with the implementation. I think there will be some progress made on the road. The asset recovery seems to have hit a wall and has just gone missing. We don't know exactly where they are, so there have been calls for the president to reconstitute the asset recovery team. There are now calls that are coming from Councillor Gonglo, for instance, that function is actually the LACC's function. So I think the president should take a real look at the whole approach towards asset recovery. The former Auditor General quite recently said that they didn't follow international procedures on the way they should actually constitute a team to go ahead with the issue of the asset recovery. So I think all of these criticisms that are coming with some of the members resigning from the committee, the president should take a real look at it. If there is anything that is there to be corrected, let it be corrected. But at this point in time, if the asset recovery effort cannot recover from where it is, they will not be able to recover assets. On the issue of
you are playing on words, Tom.
Basically,
if they can recover, they can recover assets.
Yeah. The president needs to help them recover before they can recover assets. So I've spoken about role. I've spoken about the asset recovery. On the issue of the training for the 10,000 young people, I think I have seen some call for applications from the LTA, but the timeline is that they said we're going to do it in 6 months. So I don't know where they are, and I don't know whether exactly they will be able to deliver before the end of June. Because the last thing I heard from them was calling students to be able to apply for it. So I think a lot needs to be done. I just want to conclude by saying and pointing to the earlier points about the scrutiny of the government. The country has been poor for so many years. People are impatient. So if you are going to deliver, you have to deliver with some level of speed. To just allow things to drag on is just going to increase this level of dissatisfaction, especially with the new government that people thought was going to drastically change things. I think they've started doing some things on these promises that they made. They just need to double down to be able to move forward. 30 seconds, if I can just say, all African countries, developing countries, are all in this boat of being global powers, pushing them as to what they can do. But some countries have managed to make progress. I don't think Liberia should continue to use that as an excuse to be among the top poor countries in the world. I think we can be able to maneuver our way if we can do a better job.
Thank you. Dr. Douglas, you were just there, right?
Yeah.
Where
What
are
do you
we
want to
with
know?
these? Where are we with these promises? I see
You
you
know,
can talk about
but
the audit, the asset declaration.
yeah, but the audit, I think he changed his mind. I don't know if you remember. I always said here when we talk about this thing, I said all these things that promises were projection from the campaign. You know, it was not realistic because Boca didn't know what kind of team he was going to have. He didn't know the capacity he was going to have. He didn't know who were going to be the operators of those institutions. And so this was like the campaign talk projected into governance. And you also
Right,
made
but some of these
mistake.
things were announced after, right? When you got it, like the war
Yeah,
crime
but
code.
no, but it was announced before he had a cabinet. Booker had not had his first cabinet meeting before he said that. He had not had his first cabinet meeting before he promised any of these things. So all these things are projection from this, you know, the stamina, everything from the campaign. Yes, we're going to do this, and then you project it and you say you will do it. But then, and then you come into, you say, oh, minister, what do you need? We don't have computers. We don't have chairs. You know, you're talking to somebody, you're talking about, oh, we want to do a project for 6 months, but the man looking for chairs and cars. And that brings you back to reality.
Right.
So I always said, give the man 6 months, let him have 2, 3 cabinet meetings, look at realities on the ground, and then let him make new promises for the next 6 months. And that's been my position because I've
Yeah,
been there. I've
you
been
said
there.
that.
Huh?
I said you said that. So you're saying like Boaka did not anticipate the Senate having a retreat.
No, he doesn't. No, yeah, well, yeah, retreat and
The
all of
Senate's a
these.
different branch.
Yeah,
They're on
he
their own
didn't. I
affairs.
don't think he's expected to go to. He was expecting to go to Korea.
Right.
He didn't
But
expect
but
to come to America to the corporate council meeting.
but how do we deal with the issue of trust?
The issue of
Oh,
trust
yeah, because
is
you make promises when you win, then we say let's discard everything and then make new promises because you are in office now. How do we deal with the trust of citizens?
the trust is to be fair and transparent and say, okay, I made these promises before I got into power or after I got elected. I was expecting to have this, that in place. Now that I'm here, we Liberian people, I can tell you these are the problems. We can't do all of this, but we can tackle some of these issues, and with your help, we can solve some of these problems. So you have to be transparency. It's not just money. It's about also admitting that I was wrong in my promises. I overstated my ambitions. Like Prince Johnson said, the guns that liberate should not govern. People who run campaigns are not the best governors. Campaign managers are usually cheerleaders. So if you put that kind of government together,
And, and do we see that transparency, Dr. Dukley? Just 30 seconds.
well, with everything that has been said for the last 3, 4 months, we have problem with transparency.
Thank you. Mr. Sharif,
Yeah,
let me come to you
yeah,
on these promises. You know, but we like to stand on the promises of our leaders.
yeah.
And there are certain things that we can do that don't even require money. For instance, declare your asset and publish it. Hold elected government officials accountable. If you transact business with the Senate, like you scratch my back, I will scratch your back. You don't need money for that. Just stand up for what is right, right?
Right.
So looking at all these promises, especially the promises of accountability, transparency. You know, this is a new day, and you signal that this is no business as usual. You don't need money. Where are we with these promises?
Yes, you certainly don't need money. So Boaka made a lot of great promises, but as soon as elected, he's dealing with a cabal, a well entrenched, corrupt elite that's fighting back and reclaiming.
That is expected. He was there 12 years. He knows.
Yeah, absolutely. Claiming reasserting and claiming their territory. They're very territorial, these elites, and so he is fighting now to do those things that have never been done before, or that have been done, 100 years ago. So that being said, the issue of the War Crimes Court, I would be mildly disappointed if that doesn't go through. I think that is going to go through. There's a momentum for that. Dennis, the IMPFL in January of 1990 attacked the town of Complet and murdered children and men, women, and children in that town. And they returned again on January 7th of 1990 and murdered more. And Prince Johnson never talked about that in his TRC testimony. These things will be made available when we have this court. So this court, the spirits of the dead, it's begging for this court to be established. The spirit of the dead is begging and yearning for a day that justice will be brought to those people who mercilessly murdered civilians and innocent citizens throughout the length and breadth of the country. So that is not in our hands, as I will even say, without sounding clairvoyant, that is not even in our hands. It's in the hands of a power that's greater than all of us now, and I think it's going to happen. So on the issue of roles, which the president mentioned, the president campaigned on, he talked about this, and this is the one thing that I look at. I'm looking at this, and it's been done now. It has been done, and this is an area that Bouaka will keep. If I were he should really, really stick to this. Stick to this. I mean, this is something where he can make his mark. For years and years, no president has expressed more seriousness about roles than Bouaka is right now. Maybe Ellen maybe probably came close, but this is one of the most serious attempts at connecting the interior with the cities, and so this is very important. I think this is going to hold as well. So those two things are going to hold. When you talk about all this and whatnot, you are going at the cabal. You're going at the corrupt elite who are fighting back tooth and nail, and that is a hard thing to do.
Thank you, Mr. Salif. Let's conclude on checking. Pause check on these promises.
Look, I just want to quickly, before I go on the promises, everybody has already really discussed them exhaustively. I will not belabor some of the points. But look, there are certain things that just come with the territory. To be president, to represent your people, you have to travel. You have to take trips that will yield benefits, and to the people sometimes it yields nothing. It just opens doors, right? So when the president comes to Dallas, to some kind of Africa investment conference, or Korea, we say, well, what's the budget? There's a budget for the presidency, and there's a budget line called travel.
Travels, yeah.
So I don't think every single time the president takes trip, we have to release some kind of budget, to the public necessarily. That's not, we will not govern. They will not be able to really run the government. Secondly, this notion that you are campaigning.
Let me stop you a little bit. You said if you give us a budget of your travel, what is it going to impede?
Well, listen, Janice, you have the Ministry of State. The ministry that runs the presidency has the budget, and there's a budget, budget. So you're saying every single time the president goes on any trip, we have to do you see it happening here in the U.S. or other countries where you release the president's travel budget?
Mr. Salif,
hold on now, and it's my turn to speak, please, Dr. Dukley. And I know sometimes when you are speaking, it's tempting to jump there. We hold the line. We're patient. But my point is, yes, there are things that are new to Liberia. Social media has come, accountability, scrutiny on government, even the people in power are not used to some of the openness, the criticism, the scrutiny, the demand that every now and then people are throwing things, seeing folks in their offices screenshot things and distribute them to others, and so now they're pushed against the wall. They have to respond to that. To an extent, that is a good thing, because then it creates a new culture of accountability, of awareness, and hopefully it curbs corruption. But the point I'm making is a larger point about governance, of how you run the system, how you run the country. If you're a president, so many things are thrown at you. Some are planned, some are not planned. That's why it's a liberal democracy, right? It's a representative democracy. We trust the people, we elect them to run and govern in the country. So yes, there will be situations where it makes sense to release a budget, but there are situations where we will not demand budget for every single trip the president makes, for example. The final thing point I'll make on this sort of larger point I'm raising, this notion that as you run your campaign, there are bigger hands that are making you to make promises now that you are elected. It's just neo-colonialism. You're not able to implement those promises. That's not how it works. We some of us do know about the international system. That's not how it works. Yes, there are some of these things happening where there are interest in the country, in certain sectors of the country. But every single candidate who has a platform, who comes from a political institution, they lay out for the people what they will do, given constraints, given resources of the country. If it's a smart and responsible party or government that's coming to power, they know where these resources will come from and how the budget will look like to implement or not to implement. To say that all of these are out of our hands, I think is just a misrepresentation of the reality, really. So I just wanted
Dennis, quickly. Dennis, quickly.
No. Before you come on, please.
If I can come to Dennis, to your question about post-check, right?
You didn't come yet?
No, I didn't come yet. I mean, I had to really disabuse some things that I heard. I thought I were misrepresentations. Quickly, though, I mean, listen, there are things that I think will happen. There are things that, based on certain binding constraints, will be difficult to implement. Roles, I think there will be progress on roles. War and economic crimes code, I think it will be difficult, but it will happen. Some version of it will happen. We need it in Liberia, and I think we will get international support for that.
Okay, can I say something here about this thing about accountability and all of that? When I say people
challenging you.
Yeah, when I say people ask questions about the budget of the president traveling and then asking what he brought home, I was speaking in terms of communication. What is the state of mind of people who go from saying, oh, the president went to America, he met some good people, and he has new connection. He went to South Korea, he met good people, he's coming back. But they don't go to that. They go to how much you spend on those trips.
Yeah,
that's my point. That's the issue I was raising.
Oh, okay.
I think you misconstrued.
Sorry, maybe I misunderstood that. But
you misunderstood my point. My point was the people thinking now why our money is spent on these issues, rather than the president went this and that. We're dancing.
That's quick propose. So you spend this much money and we expect this. That kind of thing.
That's the point I was trying to make.
Okay.
That's why I wanted to stop you.
I was in the room with President Bouaka when he fell into that, right? When he came here in Atlanta, and he started to answer and give us what he's bringing back. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, you don't have to in that way.
You don't have to. You're
president.
Have to
answer that way. You're governor.
That's a small thing mentality.
Someone just asked the question, the White House, the president budget is public. Yeah, that's what I said. The Minister of State, budget should be public. It's out there. There's travel lines. Sure. But every single travel that comes about, whether it's contingent travel or it's planned travel, this idea that particular specific travel's budget has to necessarily be laid out.
But actually the budget of president travel usually known.
It's known.
Everybody knows how much you're getting for per diem. The travel cost, the ticket cost
Exactly.
is
But
always
this
low.
idea that we measure, right? So this is the
Yeah.
budget, and this is how much you bring
Yeah.
back. I think is unrealistic.
Okay.
But if I can quickly, if I can,
Before you go, hold on, Thelma, it will be Honorable Grips and then you. But let me announce that this is Tough Talking Thursday. We have maybe like 20 minutes to close the show, and we still have 2 segments left. To call 605-313-6004. The code is 791-403 #. So as you give your comment, please be as brief as possible. Let me start with Honorable Grips.
Thank you, Dennis. You know, when we start talking like this, and it gives me the kind of impression like we don't understand the political arena as we think or we're perceived to have understood it. First of all, on the budget is public records, public document. We are aware that yes, there are allotted for through the president's travel office budget, and those money, whatever trip. When I worked, my experience with Minister Leave, every trip we made, that budget was a public document. Yeah. She never hid it. We never waited for anybody to come back and say, "Oh, I'm going to put the budget together." No, it was a public instrument. Secondly, some of these big summits you see government going to, like the one in the U.S., the summit in Korea. Most of those trips sometimes and expenditure has already been paid for by the host nation. You just got to send an email dedicated. However, when the delegation is leaving Liberia, they still get per diem and other stuff from the Liberian government. So that all that had to be made. Got to have a balance on that and let the public be aware. Accommodation, plane tickets, all of those things are covered by the host country. When we come back to me misrepresenting facts here, I think it's absurd that we should understand that the president is the president, but the president is a political leader. The president comes to office through political juggling, political exercise. In politics, most of the persuasion, those soundbites are not actual promises. We know that. Now, however, they are all proposals. Some will be credible, some will be just shot in the dark. Now, any sound person will understand and see if you're astute political follower or political knowledgeable, you will know that nobody before taking office or takes office in the first day and start making all of these developmental promises. Although we know government is based on continuity, but without going to office, understanding the budget, giving a full briefing of how much is in the covers, what are the contracts are, all of those concessions and all of that, and just make all those promises. It tells you that they're getting information from someplace else because they have never been in government. They don't know how government works, and so that is where we come from now. On the last count,
let me go to
on
the
the
next
last. Yeah, let me come to the last count. Because
there's
things where we can come and share our ideas and start going after somebody on a speech. Just make your point. The president came in, first of all, before the first month, before inauguration, they announced a team they announced to the public that they were going to conduct audit. Audit is, from there is unreasonable. Audits can never be conducted as such. You need time. I said it. I said he needed 6 months in office. He needed to go through the paper trail, understand what the faults are, not get on DC and what have you. Understand things for yourself before you start conducting audits. And there are certain places you cannot just conduct audit. It's not workable. And I said that before, but I was condemned. And
thank you. Thank you. Thomas.
I just wanted to make a quick point on the issue of, okay, we understand the budget passes, everything the lawmakers are doing, their specific budget lines. The Ministry of State has a travel line.
Yeah.
But this is within a context where people think that public officials are not using their resources efficiently.
Okay.
And so these demands are coming. Let's not forget that we have the Freedom of Information Law that was passed in 2009. If the government refuses to publish how much they spend on a specific trip, whether it's in South Korea or other places, the citizens of Liberia have the right to file a request to the Information Commission to compel the government to publish that report. So do you want the citizens to continue to file that report? If it is in your budget line and you spend 50,000 out of 2 million that is in your budget line, why don't you just publish it? But this whole issue of you go out and they say how much it costs and nobody can say it. Oh, Korea paid for 10%. Just publish the report of how much it costs you. And then we are over this and we move forward. If we are going to be transparent, let's just be transparent. But to say it's already in the budget and therefore we cannot publish it, I don't think it's it's a justifiable reason. If your citizens need it, just provide the information to them.
No one's saying don't be transparent, but I think I'm speaking from the perspective that every single there will be trips that will not be planned. There will be things, and there's budget line.
The president never traveled on the own trip.
I'm speaking. You're speaking over me. So when directly, it's an attack on me right now. So when I say something, you say people who are not intelligent, people who are not informed, these kinds of things. You invite these things on yourself on a grief, and I'll respond because I know how to respond. Okay.
Go ahead.
Sir, you're not the only one who has worked in government who knows about it.
You're wasting the time now. Go ahead.
About it. Yeah.
Hold on, guys.
You are disrupting.
Go ahead, my friend.
Hold on, Mr.
Seriously, that's not. You can't
know. Mr. Please go ahead. Please proceed.
No, you're not the host. You can't do that to me on the show. You see, you're gonna make all of us to misbehave on the show, and that's not right.
No, I hope not. Just go ahead, sir. Let's get this so we can bring in the first caller. Conclude your point, Mr. Salif.
We're saying the same thing, Thomas, in different ways. I think I'm saying to be president. I've never been one before, but I've studied one. I've seen them. It might, the way my observation, there will be. It will be cumbersome for every single time for this noise about. Okay, so how many you go on this trip? How much? What's the budget? Yes, there are others that are paying for some. The government is paying for some. All of this is public record. The Ministry of State has the budget for this. And people, there's a place to go and find this information. But this clamoring that social media is now bringing specifically on the presidency, the quid pro quo effect of it, how much we spend, how much are you bringing? That's not how you govern. It's not every single trip that the president comes back, we quantify what is it that the president brought back. That is not how it works.
I get your point. Dennis, 1 minute. I get Ahmed's point. I'm not going to the quick. 1 second, Dennis. 1 second.
It's not the problem.
One second. Let me just complete my thought. 1 second. Let me just complete my thought.
No. Please, Ahmed, you forgetting one point. It's not the issue about that's not how things supposed to go. That's how people think now.
Yeah,
and that's how you deal with your country. You run a country where people think the president travel. I want to know how much he spent and what he bringing back. The basic, what Papa brought home. Papa that come, Papa brought something home. The basic. No, that's where the people are. You don't make the law. You don't make the rules.
So you respond.
You don't say, "Oh no, that's not how you work."
Okay, that makes sense, right? Yeah, all right. So
you and I don't. Yeah, for you and I
there's new media. Therefore, the government now has to have a strategy as to how to work with the public on this new.
Have to improve
what
this
did you bring?
That's Ahmed's point is, 1 second. Ahmed's point is that it's going to be cumbersome. That every trip you make, you have to publish. You go to Agricos, you publish. You go to this place, you publish. My point is that if you keep it to yourself and the citizens have to file a freedom of information request to go through that process before you publish it, it takes a lot of time of the citizens and the government. So the way to deal with it, now that there's this internet, people are clamoring for it, just put it out there. And we move forward.
Thank you, Thomas. We are 3 minutes after the time. Let me bring in our first caller here. Callers?
I'll be listening in the background.
Your name and where you calling from?
Hey, Mr. John, how you doing? This is Willie out of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Go ahead, Willie.
Yeah, good show tonight. It's sad to listen to Mr. Salim, Mr. Sharif, and the show tonight because we have followed the show for over, I don't know how many years now. Those are some of the things that the very Boakai and his group in the driving seat today demanded from past government. Trip coming out, how many person going?
Yeah.
How much is the budget? It was propounded over and over on every media. It is almost like it's part of the constitution now in Liberia So why I don't know why people are farming at it today, and plus Mr. Black has been in power or in governing system for so long. When they talk about the dinosaur of governing in Liberia, it's Mr. Black guy. So everything that we're talking about today, he didn't know that this was going to happen. He never been. No, he knew about everything. Okay, when you get in government, you got to pass budget before this thing can happen. That's why they are going even against the PPCC law that taking $22 million and put on that road. You know it. You knew it from the beginning. But you said, because we wanted to fulfill the 100 days. So because you wanted to fulfill 100 days, you're going to go against the Constitution?
Thank you, Willie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me bring in Mr. Kalebo Gonglo. Mr. Gonglo, you're live. Go ahead, sir. Mr. Gonglo.
Yes, Dennis. Great show. But I will say this quickly. I'll take you guys back to the tenant retreat. Let's face it. I listen to Greece. I listen to I listen to Dr. Do. Retreats are necessary. We all agree on that. But the Senate got this on themselves. And the fact is, the Liberian legislature, there is a low level of confidence from the public in the legislature. It's just a fact. In the last 18 years, most of the wealthy people in public view have come from the legislature. The Snow, the Tala, Nukwe, Jeremiah Kun, Jeremiah Kun, and Thomas Falcon and Correction King Kong. Abuchi, Funati Kofa, let's go on. So people believe the guys sit in the legislature and allocate the tax dollar to themselves and take it. I know for a fact. Let's go on the 30,000 debate that the legislators argue, the Senate argue that they return the second half of the 30,000, they didn't take it. But our budget remained the same, it never reduced. All they did is reallocate, repurpose it to different land items and increase the amount. So it remained the same. I think 3.6 million, whatever. It remains the same, it never changed. Just as a House of Representatives. So this thing, I listened to Spoon yesterday. Prince Moyi, Senator Moyi, said they received $10,000 before the retreat, before going to Buchanan. The 50,000 you're talking about could have been maybe the operational, expenses today, giving something to journalists, food, catering service. Then they turn around and say, give them money. So there's the conflicting account from their retreat is a problem because the Senate is not transparent.
Right.
I will end on this point because you guys are out of time. I will end on this point. That digitalization thing is talking about. Anna Sally has record working with USAID. I would challenge you, go look in USAID. Ellen Johnson Salim regime, the USAID actually supported modernization of the Liberian legislature.
Yeah.
Even how to record their vote, everything. They did not want that record. They damaged all those speakers. They damaged all the recordings. So what guarantee do we have that if they go this now, it will still remain there?
Thank you.
The records are there.
Thank you. And I remember Senator Communist Wise was heading that modernization of the Senate. I remember that very well. Our last caller here is Aliyu Samba Kamara.
Thank you for having me, Dennis. Dennis, I think I side with Ahmed to a point. I think what he's trying to say, in other words, is there are major issues in the country that we should be more focused on. That the people.
Ahmed is here. Why you can say all you want to say for him? Go ahead.
Okay. So a lot of these things are distractions, actually. Some of these things are petty. It's not that it's wrong to actually put those details out there, but there are other significant issues. When it comes to this legislature, I think it's time for the people to stand up. Other than that, it will be the same talking that we did in 2006. It will just be the same talking. If you have a body that has the right to determine what their salary can be, determine what their pattern can be, you give them all that right. And you tell them that they can't take it. I mean, it's a difficult thing. Now, how do we change those rules Somebody who takes home $8,000 as a net pay, that same person get $3,000 in gas slip. The same person get another $800+ for visiting his own constituency. That same person has the right to take up to $45,000 worth of vehicle every 3 years. I mean, what do you tell the school teacher who do not get paid on time? I think it's time for the Liberian people to really stand up. But this is another thing I would say to Uncle Joe. I think there are some lapses that we must be honest here. I think this July, as I heard, he has to do some reshuffling. There are a lot of delinquencies. There are a lot of slackers. Look at the city mayor, for example. He came with a six Jefferson Koji and George Williams star, take broom and start sweeping around town. Is that how he cleans city? Up to now, this brother has not brought any trash in or any anywhere in the city. He expects that the people themselves will sweep the city and pack their day and pay private contractors to throw that day away. He believes that the people will do that kind of thing. And there are lots of slacking going on, like what actually said about the airport. Those are things that by now the management of the airport should put a supervisor and an inspector on the field who monitors every minute happening at the airport among airport employee and customer to know whether there's proper customer service or a target at the airport is being kept. So there are a lot of little things that Joseph Boakai, people he appointed are not paying attention to, and I think it's about time. It was on 6 months. Some of us will give him another 6 months. Then we'll really get crazy on him. Thank you.
Thank you. Liberians are good people. I believe that if you have a leader who says don't do this, they won't do it. But if the leader is doing it or if the leader is looking somewhere else, they will continue to do it. And sorry, I said Ali was the last caller, but I can't stop Bendu. Bendu, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Jared. Thank you for bringing me on. Yes, I wanted to talk about this election issue. I think one of the reasons we're always looking forward to the next election is because the people that we elect, they are not about the people. They are all about themselves. And because we don't take time to educate our people on the rights of voting, we need to really focus on letting our people know that ballot you cast is the only thing that makes you equal to everybody else in the country. That's your voice. I started doing this election, people telling our family members, if you don't vote for Boakai, I will not send you money. And so if somebody's hungry, they're not voting because they believe in what Boakai can do or what Upon they didn't do, but because they want to continue having that support. And that's fundamentally wrong for you to treat your family members like that. But it is what it is in our country. So I really think that we need to start educating our people sooner about our right to vote and what voting is all about. I heard someone talking that Boakai did not expect to go to make a trip when he became president. Yes, but he expected to travel. He expected to leave. What was his plan when he was coming into office? He told you only going to stay in Monrovia? No. So that's a very poor excuse. And I don't think we should put it out there because it's not good for us. This is a public network, and we look at it from all over the world. We sit with our friends and family, and we need to hold our leaders accountable at a higher standard. Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope he visits Sino and Grand Cru, River G. We're going to go to the Tabata of the week. Someone said something this week, and to Bendu's point, he said, our Fadiga, he said, if Liberians are hungry, the first thing they eat is their integrity. And
Yeah.
So now if you show anything to them, no more integrity, they finish eating it. At this time, we go to our Tabata of the week. Every week, there's some nonsense going on in the country, unfortunately.
I'll go first.
So, Dr. Douglas, what's your Tabata of the week?
My Tabata was to see 78 government officials, ministers, etc., at the airport lining up to welcome the president, giving up their job. I think that was, I said, where are we going?
It was on a Saturday, they were not working.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. You said leaving their job. So.
It doesn't matter.
Mr. Sharif, what's your
If they do on Saturday, they'll do on a Monday.
Yeah, I mean, it was something to see. Mr. Sharif, your Tabata of the week.
Okay, so the Internal Affairs Minister, I think last week, met with the Chinese ambassador to Liberia, Yin Chin Hu. So the internal affairs minister, in his own words, the rebel, he said this meeting was about recommitting to the one China policy. And then he goes on to beg for everything from buildings to scholarship. So I'm like, wait a minute. Is there a foreign minister? Do we have a foreign minister? Like, is there really a foreign minister?
I saw that too. I say, well, I know the guy.
Yeah, I mean, like, what is this? This is so disjointed, right? I mean, he's begging for everything. He's committing Liberia. He's not even the president. He's not the foreign minister, but he's recommitting Liberia to the one China policy.
Thank you. That's complete Tabata. Honorable Greece, your Tabata of the week.
My Tabata is slightly different a little bit. So I do this chat gathering, this chat show on WhatsApp every Friday evening with a group of some young professional diplomats and international law stewards. So we were talking about Liberia situation, and I brought in this analogy without naming any specific country, and I said we have this country. They have the legislatures or the Congress. They come to power. They're elected in the office. They never leave until maybe they die. And if they die, their sons or daughters or somebody next of kin will take over the seat. And that person going to go on and what have you. That person will come in with this amount of money. Publicly, it's stated that they're making this 100 plus annually. But in less than a year, that person is already a multi-millionaire from all the public interest and different things. Then we have the other group. They have the legislative people accused of being corrupt. They're making so much money, and why they can be like these people on the A. But these people, if they spend 3 terms in office, they're lucky. They're always elected out of office, and it's kind of rotational. And yes, one thing they're making so much money and what people is public, and they don't get millionaires, they don't get rich, they don't get billionaires in a short period of time, and they don't die in office. They'll have to leave. So which one you choose? You will want for Liberia. Everybody went with Team B. So I said, okay, you just disclose that you want the Liberian system compared to the American system. And everybody busted laughing. They didn't even know what the whole exercise was about. So I didn't just call name, but if I had called name and said Liberia and America, they would have said America. So because I didn't call name, I said Team A, Team B. Everybody went with Team B. And then they found out that was Liberia.
Thank you. Mr. Salif, your Tabata of the week.
I don't know. I don't have a particular Tabata this week. I just saw something in the newspaper that the president was urging the ministers, I think it's the president, I could be wrong, to speak through the Minister of Information. And of course, the Minister of Information, right, is a mouthpiece of the government that speaks on behalf of the government. I was trying to understand why is that point being reinforced. Maybe everybody is speaking in a way that is inconsistent. It could have been, but it was just something that struck me. I would try to dig into a little deeper later. But just that there's a Minister of Information, but then there's a call for everybody to speak through the minister.
I like that, man. Wow.
Almost your Tabata of the week.
For me, I mean, it's not to say, okay, it doesn't make sense, but we have a budget of over 700 million, but we are developing our next national development plan for the next 5 years. Then you have donor partners who have to come give us money. And then you have this signing ceremony where we appreciate this partner for giving us maybe 200,000, 300,000 when we just passed the national budget. So if we are not committing money to develop our plan to develop the country, then where are we really going? It's like we want money for everything to the extent where we want money to even develop a plan to get out of poverty. So to me, I don't know.
That's complete Tabata. Again, if you are watching us and you have your Tabata, please share it. My Tabata is the whole money thing that came around, the confusion around the Senate retreat, and that the representative too say you're not leaving us behind. We're having our own retreat. I look at the whole thing that people are just finding a way to put money to justify their budget line. I don't believe that the retreat that they are going on will yield anything, and to me, that's complete Tabata. Well, if you are watching, what's your Tabata of the week? If not, let's conclude for the night. I know we cover a lot of ground, and thank you so much for watching. Focus on Liberia, where we educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Then you talk about, say, well, we should educate our people on how to vote and the rest of it. That's what you get at Focus on Liberia, Monday through Sunday. So don't forget. Let's go through now for our closing. Dr. Dukley, let me start with you.
Well, I think it was a good show. I think we raised a lot of points, issues, and my concern about Buakai's agenda is what I say in my last paper. Don't let, or you shouldn't let the arrest agenda be drawn into accommodation. He started with a coalition government. When you talk about war crime tribunal, somebody says it's never going to happen. Maybe it has to do with the fact that Prince Johnson holds one side of the government. When you talk about international issues, so I don't know. I think that's my concern. I've always said it would take 6 months for anyone to know where they are situated, how they work in that office, to be comfortable to make projections. So I always said, give the man 6 months, and then let him make not new promises, but say how he's going to deal with the promises he made at the end of the campaign. So I'm like, the glass is half full, half empty, but Liberia needs more than that. If it just means to return to the normal, and normal being the criminal states, we have to go away. How can you cut down the cost of the states? How can you make sure that people get a fair share of the wealth of the nation? How do you stop people from exporting your raw material, even at the second stage? Those are really decisions that president has to make a difference. How do you cut down the heavy weight of the state on the people? So much that they can't even have water to drink, they don't have electricity. That's the poorest country in the world. We are the poorest country in the world. If we don't wake up to that, yeah, I know, but we still give $260,000 to our senators. So we have a problem, moral problem, a decency problem.
Senator Prince Moy say, that you say you're only looking at the Senate. Yeah, the senators now, the representatives make maximum 8,000. But you said they are ministers that make up to 15,000. We can see them. We only see senators and representatives.
It's the state. It's the cost of the state. The same thing.
Thank you, Mr. Sharif. You're closing.
Yeah. So it's been. I agree. It's been a good show, and look. So what we're discussing here is what is going on with Liberia, and I think that there are some good signs that I see. It's not all hopeless for me. So I see some good signs, and so.
What glasses are you wearing?
I think that if you ask two other people like me, they'll give you the same answer. It's not altogether terrible, Dennis. We've come a long way. We've come a long way to where we're at, and so I want to keep it. Sometimes I like to keep it positive, right? And then
let me push you there, because they say we are time you didn't keep it positive. What changed?
Yeah, I hear these people writing all. I see these people writing all of this, right? And now they say I'm a UP member, right? But here's the thing, that Dennis. So after 6 years, Boaka, who may not run again, we have a 2020 now that is very wide open, and I can see the lane so wide open that any of the people that we talk about tonight, is possible that they can be president of the Republic of Liberia.
If I can get to sign up before that time, I'll put my hat in the ring as well.
We will get there, Dennis.
Yeah.
So it's very wide open, and I think that if Mr. Boyka just do the things, do the little thing, do the things that he promised to do, some of the things that he promised to do, and then the gavel will be passed on to someone else who can pick up from there. Whether that's Amara Kone, which I think he will be a formidable candidate. Whether that's Yombly Kanga Lawrence, I think she's going to pull support in that area. Whether that's Sir Joseph or anyone else.
Jeremiah Kuhn, right?
Jeremiah Kuhn and Weah, don't forget. So it's very wide open. So it'll be interesting to see.
Honorable Graves, you're closing, sir.
Yeah, that was a wonderful show again. Thanks for having me. Just about just the 2 points made. I think we're a nation that's striving. I think we will get there unless we unburden ourselves from our selfish thinking and this recircle points that are being regurgitated that we're so corrupt, we can't do anything good for ourselves and what have you. We pour questioning everything, every move by the individuals we elect into office, into public office. The reason we elected them to have government functioning. And we can be this naive or short-sighted that every legal function of government agencies or government institutions or even branches should be criticized to the level we do. Now, I will give some of the blame to the Senate on that retreat. The messaging was poor. When I read that thing, it was just convoluted. I think they would have a better messaging to the public to clarify some of these things. But I think these are standard practices that need to be happening. We need reconciliation. We need our officials, elected officials, to work together to harmonize in a symmetrical way that will bring produce for our country. It's not happening now, but it's going to happen in the future. So that's it. Secondly, the asset recovery. Yes, it was a good idea of the president constituting a team, but the team was unconstitutional. Therefore, we should not blame him. We blame the lawyers and the legal people around who gave that idea and thought it could function the way they were expected to function. It just was not going to work. So that failed. On the issue of the war crimes, when I sit there and say there will be no war crimes, I'm not speaking because I want to be me or whatever. Or we all somewhere or other. Every Liberian need to look in the mirror. You don't have to tow guns. All of us somehow we contributed some way to the chaos and atrocities in Liberia. There were people who live in communities. I'm telling you, there were people who live in communities who pointed people out. There were people who didn't hold guns. They were supporting. They had allegiance to different warring factions. There were people in communities that lived who were pointing because of jealousy and envy. The same thing we're doing, being insufferable to one another, pointing houses, pointing people out to those guys. So what happened? You buried the blame as well. So there were a lot of things that happened all through our civil conflict. So we should sit down and we all should sit down and refocus what we want to be after all these decades of peace as we are turning the table. The international community have used Liberia as a post-conflict success story on many platforms. They are not going to come back and rescind that because we want to please few politicians, few guys who set up NGOs and pushing this whole thing about war crimes code. When they had a time, the Security Council for the first time came together and decided to have UN intervene and take over from ECOWAS in Liberia. ECOMOG forces left, ECOWAS left, UN took over. That was a decision made by all security, every one of them, not one of them descended. And that's how we had UMIL, the residual force. We had all of those things, and then we had a whole package, a long-term package. What you want to do after phase 1, phase 2, to elections and reconciliation. So now they are focused on more big issues. The Middle East, Eastern European nations. They're not focused on Liberia. They're looking at us as people who just want to be in problem all the time. They do not have the resources to channel there. They're not willing to come back there because they already withdrew from Liberia, and their mission is accomplished, and Liberia is considered a post-conflict success story. So nobody should fool anybody. There's no nation, the United States of America, none of the big powers, Great Britain, have come up with any official statement publicly to say this is their interest for Liberia. So who running with those things? I mean, it's just unfortunate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis, I can't let that rest because my father and mother did not do anything. So he said everybody's responsible. It's not true. It's a lie. My father and mom were sitting there in Zwedru. They did not harm anybody. They were not the cause of the civil war. In fact, they were victims of the war. So no, that's untrue.
Somebody supported a warring group somehow. Somebody pointed people out.
My father was an imam. My father was the man of God. He supported nobody. He supported.
I have people who died. I also have people who died, unfortunately, in the war. I have friends, relatives, cousins, uncles. And so we all suffer the burn. We know what happened.
So you don't want justice? You don't want justice for your relatives?
That's a different story. But to say
the justice process for Liberia right now has been recognized. It's the development. It's the development economic path.
To let it pass that to have a court that you just assume there will be conflict and violence, and the international community does not want that.
Nobody said there will be. Nobody said there will be conflict. You see, you always take words other people want and misconstrued it.
Hold on.
I never spoke of conflict and violence.
Hold on. Let me go to Thomas for his closing. Thomas, your closing, please.
I think it was good to hear from those who have been to Liberia recently, to hear from the ground what is happening, what the people feel about the current government, what their dreams are. I think overall, since President Weah left, the country has been peaceful. I think it will take some time, but people will start to dream again. I do think regardless of what the government does, there are people who are fending for themselves. They sell water. They look for food for themselves. Once the country is peaceful, people will be able to move ahead with their lives. So there will always be this endogenous growth. You see a lot of young people starting their own businesses and doing things. We will get there. The only thing the government needs to do is to really push so that we can cover a lot of ground. On the issue of the legislative retreat, like we said, I mean, retreat is necessary. They can recongregate, they can assess themselves and set an agenda to be able to move the country forward. But it all comes down to the issue of trust. It all comes down to the issue of being transparent and accountable. Even the executive had a retreat. We don't see any report. What were the decisions that were made at the retreat? What are they going to work on moving forward? People go and have these engagements and then they come back. The public is not aware of what are the next steps. How do we hold them accountable for what was discussed in the retreat? I think these are things the government agencies need to work on. On the issue of the big agenda items, I think there's going to be a movement on the War and Economic Crimes Code. We continue to put the two of them together, but they're actually separate. The resolution that was passed was to set up a separate war crimes court and also a domestic anti-corruption court, which is already part of our reforms. Even the new LACC Act that was passed, there's this provision that we are going to set up a domestic court. And I don't agree to the point that the major countries have not made any point on supporting Liberia for the war crimes court. The US has repeatedly said that when Liberia makes the decision, they are going to support. I think the Congress is even having a hearing on this issue. If you go to Front Page Africa now, is there. Civil society organizations and others are there asking for support. When the president eventually writes the UN to say that Liberia is ready for this, I think this is where other countries are going to come in. Rose, I think we are going to make progress. But the overall thing that we need to address is the issue of corruption, transparency, accountability. We should be the foundation, and then we can make progress with every other thing. But overall, I think there was a great show. Looking forward to next week.
Thank you. Mr. Salif, you got the last word.
Janice, I wrote a major paper on the World Economic Crimes Court debate. You can link it for our viewers.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
not just what I said, it is what other countries have done and how the United Nations, how we raise funds for these kinds of things. So what Liberia could learn from other contexts. So Thomas, you're spot on there with that specific point. I wanted to respond to Bindu quickly about somebody saying the president should not travel. If I was understood that way, that was not what was said. Really, the point was that uh, as president, you know, there are things that are contingent that just come and you have to do. You have to travel. There are some travels that you plan intentionally because you want to invest in certain things and go after certain things. So nobody expects the president not to travel internally and externally. Presidents do travel, and you know some of these are things that are planned ahead of time. So I just wanted to clarify that on the you know the president's agenda and you know what are we're seeing progress. I think it's too early for some of the big promises that they made. We'll give them some time to observe and see what happens. But for me, one area that I would really be watching to see if we'll make progress is to to find our way around just this high recurrent cost and high wage bill that consumes our budget. I think, you know, Thomas, you guys are the public financial people, was significant percentage of the budget. If we continue going the way we're going, there's no way we can do major public investments. And that's where development comes in. That's where you really make progress. We can't depend on partners and partners. Every sentence any government official makes, there's something about partners, our partners in there. We have to find a way to go away from that a little bit and look to our own resources and see how we can expand the budget envelope and see how we can really do major things that will help attract investment and move the country forward. Otherwise, it's not all negative. Like Mohammed was saying, it's true, really. You know, Liberia, I tell my children, it's a whole country. A lot of people who are smart and well-intentioned in Liberia and outside of Liberia who care about Liberia. I think we have the people to move the country forward. We just have to change our mindset and some of our practices.
Thank you so
Dennis,
much.
quickly before you go, I know we're out of time. I never said there will be violence or chaos in Liberia if the War Crimes Code came. I said our international partners do not have the willing interest any longer, and I know that for a fact. But UN ambassador saying, ask a question in passing and say if that's what the Liberian people want, we will reconsider. We'll consider that and work with them. It's not an official statement. No country has made any official statement. One of the big Security Council committee, none of them have come about to say we are in this and we want this. So I stand. Let me stand corrected on that.
How about we doing it for ourselves? How about we
Mr.
doing it
Ambassador,
for ourselves?
I just want to ask a question though. I want
Yeah,
to ask a
please.
question.
Please.
Is it, this War Crime Tribunal, is it hinging on what some
Yeah.
international community wants to do or what Liberians want?
Exactly.
So that's
I
the
mean,
problem.
that's
That's
my question.
and
I mean,
yeah,
what can
okay.
Liberia say? Okay, we're going to have our own War Crime
Right.
Tribunal in a different way, with the means we have, without going to America, without going to Paris for beg for money. Can't we think that way?
Thank you. And
Okay,
for
good
those
question.
of you, I just shared the article
So,
of Mr. Salif. Hold
should
on.
I answer his question?
No,
Oh,
that's
okay.
rhetorical question. We got to go.
Rhetorical?
Yeah, Mr. Salif has this article there. It's on the Just Security website, and you want to take some time to read, and we can have a separate show. Liberia's post-war struggle for accountability.
That was a crucial question, Dennis. That was not
Yeah.
rhetorical.
Yeah, so we got to go, but gentlemen, I really want to appreciate your time. I don't want to keep you too long before it becomes like other shows where
I get your phone number. I will answer that question. Please get a phone number. I will get it from Dennis.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Dennis got my phone number, 443-763-1342.
All right, and I will share that with you. Again, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank our viewers for
anybody,
watching.
Anybody wants it.
And we can have a we can have a session, where we discuss War Crime Code. But until then, we are all Liberians. Whether you believe the retreat was the best thing that ever happened to the country since 1847 or not, we are all Liberians. That was a joke. Have a good night and God bless you.
And you, Sherry, I need your number.
We are Liberians.